some of the lessons learned after 50 years of marriage. And tonight what we wanted to do is we wanted to talk about why marriages fail. And of course, you probably are pretty confident that you got that all figured out. But hopefully we will be able to share with you some things that will help you to think a little bit more about why marriages fail and what you can do to help avoid that problem in your own relationships. So we will be right back. Well, that was quick. Say, hey Janice, how you doing? What are you up to?
Not much, just in the other room.
Yeah. We haven't had a chance to talk for a long time now. We
5 minutes?
Yeah, 5 minutes. So stuffed down our pizza. That's kind of the routine on Wednesday night. We stuff down the pizza and then we do the broadcast. So how about for you? How have things been going for you personally? You had a chance to visit with your mom here recently.
Yes, I had a good visit with my mom and my sister.
Mm-hmm.
And, yeah. No.
Your mom is 90 years old. We've been married for 50 years. So that means, because I can do that math, your mom was 40 when we got married. It's hard to believe, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Crazy.
It is. It's just crazy. So, but, how about for you when you are thinking about this issue of why marriages fail? What are some of the reasons that you would say?
You said you weren't going to do this to me.
Okay.
Okay.
No. I won't do it to you. I'll do the top 10 reasons why marriages fail. And that one of and probably the 11th one is springing questions on your wife during a live broadcast, right?
Right.
Number 10 reasons why marriage fails is poor conflict resolution skills. Man, I think that is, and these are not necessarily in order of their importance, but okay. Let me ask you this question because I do know you know the answer to this. Where did you learn how to do conflict?
From my mom and dad.
And where do you suppose they learned how to do it?
From their parents.
Yeah. And what makes us think that those sources of doing conflict were healthy?
They weren't.
Yeah. That's where I learned to do conflict, was from my mom and dad. And they learned to do conflict from their mom and dad. And so it just goes back. Somewhere along the line, if we're going to learn how to do conflict well, somebody has to teach us. I have invested a lot of time. We had this discussion, by the way, today about learning conflict resolution skills. I'm actually going to be launching a webinar, and I hope to share that with the folks who are watching, so that when, if they want to, they can kind of get involved in that. It'll be free, and I'm calling it driver's training. How to avoid the big crashes when you're negotiating the freeways of conflict. Okay. Another one is lack of commitment. And we talked about that last time, right?
Yeah.
When we said that, we can just always get a divorce. And couples now go into relationships with the escape clause built in.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of people around them essentially don't hold them to the expectation of working through their problems. So it's easy to quit.
Yeah.
Number 9, lack of trust.
Eat.
You're I was just testing you to see if you're paying attention. What undermines trust?
Deceitful behavior.
Exactly. And if you look at sin in relationships, that almost always it's accompanied by deceit, hiding.
I have to share something with you on this one.
Yeah, go ahead.
That a lot of, or I've heard of married people nowadays who they have access to each other's phones. So, like, the husband can look at all the wife's texts and everything, and vice versa, so that they can be accountable to them and everything.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my goodness, if you can't even trust that your husband or wife are not, emotionally cheating on you or somehow being, I'm like, I never have looked at your phone and gone, let me go through your messages.
You can if you want.
I don't even want it.
They're not that exciting. However, I can understand that when there's been a breakdown in the relationship.
Oh yeah, me too. But it seems like people, that's just their thing, It's like.
Yeah. I always ask you whenever you get a text message, because you have, unlike me, because you keep your ringer on, which drives me nuts. But I always keep my ringer off.
Which drives me nuts.
Exactly. And there it is, the epitome of male-female relationships. But I always ask you when I hear a text coming in that, who's that from? Yeah, who's that? And you always say, my lover boy.
I always say, my sister.
Yeah, really. It's either your sister or our daughters, So another one is differences in beliefs and values. That, and I can, there's a passage of scripture in the Bible that talks about do not be unequally yoked. And, if you're a Christian, that it just makes good sense to be married to somebody who shares your values. Now, you can't guarantee that that's going to persist, through your entire relationship. But life is,
I think that's one of the issues that you should be discussing before you get married in premarital counseling or something, like if you're not going to be able to get along because you don't believe in the same values or you don't have the same beliefs, then maybe you should get married.
Yeah. But people kind of overlook that a lot of times. And, and there's a whole wide range about values and beliefs, values and beliefs about managing money. I tell you, it would be very difficult for me to be married to you if you did not have the same kind of approach to money management that I have, which is that if you don't have it, you don't spend it.
Right.
We've always lived our lives that way, and that.
And I can get all the bills because you would lose.
I know how to handle that stuff, but I just wanted to let you be in charge of them.
You just don't want to handle it.
I wanted you to be in charge of the money so that you felt that you had something important to do, other than just being a kept woman.
Oh boy.
So,
How'd this last 50 years?
I know how, yeah. And there's another one is constant arguing. You know,
We're good at that.
you know, if there's constant arguing going on in the relationship, that it tells me that there's, that there's just there's something that has broken down seriously in the relationship, and so instead of looking at all of those minor issues, that we need to kind of like think about what's the big thing, what's the big breakdown, that I once heard some of the leading therapists in the nation talk about how to resolve your conflicts, and I like what they said. They said this: when you can work through your problems, work through your problems. When you can't work through your problems, then when you can talk through your problems, talk through your problems. When you can't talk through your problems, then talk about why you can't talk through your problems. What's the hang up? Where what's the disconnect? And then when you can't talk about why you can't talk through your problems, then get some help. So yeah, it's important. So number 5 is unrealistic expectations.
I have an example of that.
Okay. With respect to me?
Huh? Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Talking.
This is unrehearsed.
You told me you didn't want me to rehearse it.
I know.
No, I was talking to our daughter the other day who's married, and I said, one thing that we learned not really soon in our marriage, but pretty soon on, is that you are not a mechanic, and that even though it's kind of like the man's thing, you're supposed to, especially back when we were young, right? When no one had any money or anything, the husband's supposed to go fix the car when it breaks.
Yeah.
Or when it needs brakes or anything. And you would kind of muscle through it, some of that stuff, because there was a gentleman in the church that had taught you some of the stuff, with fixing cars and things. But I remember, like, you would go out there and you'd start trying to fix something, and the screwdriver or whatever you're using, it would slip, and then you would like make a hole in the radiator, and then we'd have to do 2 things. And I remember like you saying, I hate working on cars, and you're like, I don't know how to work on cars. And so I expected that men just know how to fix cars, but there was a time when we had to just say, you know what, you don't know how to fix them, I don't know how to fix them, we're gonna have to pay somebody to fix them.
Yeah.
That's probably a very small, unrealistic expectation, but I think we do kind of put people in boxes, on what they're supposed to do.
Yeah, well, you came from a family where your dad knew how to work on cars.
You could fix anything.
Your dad was a pretty handy guy, you know. But I am just not that guy.
But my dad was a machinist, not a preacher.
Yeah. If somebody wants to learn how to organize curriculum, or if somebody wants to know how to prepare a message or a speech, or if somebody wants to learn how to counsel people in crisis, well, then I'm your guy.
Yeah. But if you need new brakes, forget it.
Yeah, that's right. A minister friend of mine, he used to say this. He says, God has created 2 types of men: those who can work on cars, and those of us who are supposed to pay those who can work on cars.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree, So number 4 is lack of intimacy. Intimacy is more than just about having sex. Intimacy is connecting with each other's hearts. You know, that, and I will never do that to the level that a woman, specifically you, that a woman wants. You know, we just had that conversation today. You know, but and I'm not excusing myself from that. You know, but
I'm going to tell him something that we were talking about.
No, that's fine. Go ahead. Embarrass me in public.
It's not to embarrass you.
I know.
You know?
I know.
It's just that how different we are, because you would rather do a Zoom anything. You know, like everything you do in your life is on the computer, and I don't like that. I would like everything I do to be in person. Like if I were having a Bible study, I would much rather be in person, not on computer.
Yeah.
You know, and so when I'm talking to you about me as the wife, what I'm feeling and everything, that I want you to look me in the eyeballs and talk to me and not send me a text or a link.
You know, I'm going to say in defense, of myself, is that there have been plenty of times when I've gotten email messages from you when you've been upset with me.
Twice.
I think I could count more than that. But, you know, but let's just don't air our dirty laundry here in public because, you know, I mean, it's just a bad look.
That is a difference between you and I, that we communicate in different ways.
Oh man, look at that. I got pizza on my shirt. I just noticed. It's one of the wonderful things about growing old is that every time I eat a meal, I get something on my shirt.
Oh boy, I bought you a bib.
I know. I hope it comes off because I really like this shirt. So, okay.
You know, everybody's really happy to hear that.
I know. All right. Number 3 reasons why top 10 reasons why that relationships fail, and that's infidelity. You know, there's such a thing as emotional affairs, and then there's such a thing as physical affairs, or just even physical affairs for that matter. But they certainly do cause marriages and relationships to break down.
Oh yeah,
so,
that's very hurtful.
So, but you know, I'm going to on this one, financial issues. You know, I actually retired from the University of California. I would go in, I would work at the church full time, and then I would have one day off. And on the day off, I would go and work at the University of California as a designer for curriculum there. And that's where kind of I became obsessed with working on computers, you know. But I was surprised because the lady I worked for, my boss at the university, she was actually the leading expert in the nation on personal financial management. Very gifted and talented person, and she had a wonderful staff, you know, working with her. And that's one of the things I really liked about working there was that whole experience. That now I don't remember the statistic exactly, but it was, I think that it's like after a certain number of years, it's like 3 years or something like that, is that financial issues then become the number one reason for couples divorcing.
Wow.
Yeah. I'd have to look it up. I know that they could tell me the exact, you know, we developed curriculum for, you know, the whole, for many branches of the military in the Department of Defense. And I traveled all over the United States and Europe going there. And that was the only time we got to go to Europe, you know, or at least you and me. on one of those trips. And so that was, but it was an eye opener, and it's just amazing. It's amazing to me, how much that is a factor in marriage dissatisfaction.
Something that I heard too that's happening more and more
Mm-hmm.
is that when both partners in the marriage work, that they're having their own separate checking accounts
Mm-hmm.
and divvying up the bills on who's to pay what and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. 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 Why does that bother you?
Because I think that it doesn't, I think that if you're going to be able to function as
A
a
team?
couple,
Yeah.
yeah, you have to be able to trust one another, just put your money all together and take care of the finances together.
Yeah.
And I think that does cause some resentment because maybe one partner's not really paying for much and the other one's paying for more, and you
Mm-hmm.
know,
Yeah.
it could be difficult.
Well, and I think that here's another, and I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying that here's another factor that may play into that, is that I think that it can lend itself towards irresponsibility in money management. Because let's say, for instance, you and I, and let's say that there was complete parity, and you made as much money as I did. Well, then I could say, okay, well, I'm going to go out. It's my money. I can do with it what I want.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of a disregard for your partner.
Mm-hmm. That's what
You
I
know,
think.
we've had to talk through, and we kind of have at least. I'm not saying we get it all right, but I am saying that we've figured it out, and I think that not only have we lasted 50 years, but I think we've enjoyed the process, the time together, for the most part. Would you agree?
Yes.
Okay.
We didn't have any money really I mean, okay, we had money to manage. When we were first married, we had
Nothing.
money
Yeah.
that paid for exactly what we needed for that week, and that's it.
Yeah, for a long, long, long,
You
long,
know,
long, long time.
there was no like, oh, let's think about what we want to do with all this money.
Yeah, yeah, you know. So, but and one of the things that we did actually early on is because not only as Christians we made a commitment to tithe or give to the church, even though I was paid from the church, is that we gave a portion of our income, at least 10% of it back to the church. But and it wasn't like it was mandated. That was our choice that we did. But we also saved. Now, we didn't always save, like, we didn't always have money in the bank, but we did invest along the way, in mutual funds and things like that, because the
Social
churches were,
Security.
yeah, and where the churches where I worked, by and large, never did offer any retirement program,
Right.
So,
And because you are considered self-employed, that we would have
self-employed.
to pay a
Hmm.
quarterly tax, so you have to save money to pay that 4 times a
Hmm.
year.
I don't understand people that where they got that idea that ministers don't pay taxes, because I think that you just went to the post office today and sent off a pretty hefty check to Uncle Sam, you know.
Yeah.
So we do that every quarter. Finally, on this list, that there's the lack of communication is how much has communication been a complicating factor in our relationship?
I think it's probably the biggest one.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with you on that. Now, let's don't get lost in the weeds, but with respect to it being the biggest one, is what's really the core difference, or the struggles with us in communication?
Mm,
I'll give
I'm
you a
a
hint.
I'm a woman and you're a man.
There you go. You know, That the I have a friend now. He's retired from doing marriage family therapy, but I always said that he was a marriage whisperer. Like you have horse whisperers and whatever. He was just a delight to watch working with couples. Now, I'm not saying he got it all right, but I learned a lot. I sat in with him on a few occasions when he was working with couples. But actually he came from a background where he had a very difficult relationship with his wife, and that's kind of what propelled him forward into learning how to do it. But he said this, is that the real problem with couples is that I want you to respond to me in the same way that I would respond to me if I lived inside your skin. That's what we all want. We want somebody to respond exactly how we want them to respond. Because
I think that the point is that you want them to completely understand what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
And
and I'm not gonna try to find a wiggle out of that, okay? Because I know I can do better.
No, I'm not. Okay.
No. I know this. I know you're not talking about me. I want to just say this. I know I can do better, but I also know that that no human being can fill the role that God is meant to fill in our lives. Who understands our heart, who knows our thoughts, who shares our burdens, who cares for who's there for us. And I realize we want people with skin on, but a husband or a wife is not meant to be your God. So. Okay, now I'm going to tell you, because my top item didn't make those top 10. The number one thing that I believe that causes the breakdown of every relationship, and I actually talked about this with my therapist friend on a few occasions, but the number one reason why I believe it that contributes to the breakdown of relationships is just simply this: mismanaging disappointments. Have you ever, now this is time, have you ever been disappointed in your relationship with me?
Yes. Have you ever been disappointed in your relationship with me?
Absolutely not. Never. Not for a second. And I don't even know why you would bring that up in a broadcast like this. I think that all you're trying to do is embarrass me in public.
Okay, Helen.
But there's some dysfunctional conflict management skills. Calling me Helen, calling me my mom. All right, Richard. So, okay. Now here's what I've discovered, is that when couples mismanage their disappointment, here's what always happens. Now, it took me a long time to figure this out. And I'm not joking, because when I went to Bible school, they didn't, the help that they gave us on this type of stuff was very minimal, So I entered the ministry, and I'm thrown into the deep end of the pool where there's real people with real problems. And here I am, 22 years old,
Yeah.
But it wasn't
Newlywed.
Newlywed, trying to work through this. But I noticed a pattern, and I was really slow. I really was. But I noticed a pattern of all couples in crisis who would come through my door. After a while, I said, because I'm the type of person who's always trying to deconstruct things to figure out what's going on. And here's what I discovered. The woman will always say, if he would only change, then our marriage would be better. And the man would always say, if she would only change, our marriage would be better. And when there's a disappointment that enters into a relationship, the first consequence of that is blame. And so people get stuck in that blame loop. Then once you're in that blame loop, is that then there's a bunch of negative communication that starts to follow. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to pull from you what I think you need to do in order to make our relationship better, and you're trying to pull from me what you think, and all that does is just frustrates and worsens the problem. Then what happens is that couples, and this is why on that one of those is that where it got to constant arguing there. Then what happens is that people get stuck in the cycle of dysfunction. Mm-hmm. You hurt me, so I'm going to hurt you back. And you hurt me, so I'm going to shut down and withdraw, disconnect, whatever, And it's not long if you continue on that path of reaction, before everything just falls apart,
Yeah, and I think that part of that is the lack of communication, or knowing how to communicate.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, and that's one of the things, like I said, I'm going to be launching a webinar, and I'll let folks know when that's coming out. But at least I'll offer, and it'll be free, but I'll offer folks the opportunity to discover what I've learned along the way, and what I've discovered when it comes to learning how to communicate effectively, it not only works in marriage, but also works in the workplace, and it's not like you need a different set of communication skills wherever you go, So, all right, well, we are really out of time tonight, so anything that you would like to say before we wrap up?
Mm-hmm. I'll say real quickly.
No, that's fine.
Women, like, I can't remember how many words that women have for the day or whatever, like that whole thing is so true, and women, they have understanding on their side too, because I could sit down with a group of women.
I know.
I can say what my problem is, and they're like, we got it, girl,
Mm-hmm.
And I could talk to a man for weeks, and they're like,
and I know, and I don't even dispute it. And I think that you guys have us beat hands down with respect. Now, I have known some guys who are really adept at communicating with women. I've known a few,
Yeah.
I'm not one of them, at least not in an interpersonal relationship.
Yeah. Well, I'm not, picking on you. I'm just saying,
No, you can pick on me.
Men and women, women have to learn how to understand men more,
Mm-hmm.
because it's really hard, because you think, oh, well, it's just going to be like this. And it's like, no.
There's a Steve Harvey, and I'm not saying his book is worth reading. I haven't read it, so I'm not recommending it. But man, he had $1 million title, and it was Think Like a Man. And yeah, Think Like a Man. It was a book for women.
Okay.
And if you can think like a man, then you can communicate with men. So
I think I bought it, but I never read it. Or I didn't finish it. I didn't understand it.
Not enough words.
Yeah,
It was only 50 pages, and you wanted something that had 600 pages in it.
right.
So, all right, well, Janice, I appreciate you and I love you, and I'm glad that we've had this wonderful life together.
Me too.
And I just am looking forward to
Not
however many
50
more.
more.
No. We've already determined that it ain't going 50 more years. So, all right, cool. Well, guys, well, thank you for joining us tonight. We always have fun, and when we are doing that, you want me to let you off? Is that what you're
Yeah.
trying to do? Okay. So we always have fun when we get together and have these conversations. And I hope that you've been blessed by something that we said, and you've picked up something worthwhile in the midst of our banter. So that's it. We're just going to keep on doing this until we're done. And I don't know exactly when that's going to be, but when we finally run out of gas, we'll let you know. So, all right. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.